administration rolling back one of the protections for transgender students. And by the way, it is the opposite of what Donald Trump said when he was on the campaign trail. Is the White House trying to refight the culture wars? Then the state of the parties as Democrats try to choose the next chairman of their party and Republicans gather for the annual CPAC convention. We'll take a look at where both Republicans and Democrats are now and where they may be headed. Also, he went from possible cabinet pick to possible sports radio talk show host. You cannot make this up. How far and how fast has Chris Christie fallen? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us this Thursday night. We begin this evening with the White House's controversial move to revoke the Obama administration's school transgender bathroom guidelines. Now, the campaign trail, you may remember, Donald Trump was all for students using the bathroom of the gender they associated with. That was then, and this is now, however. Here he is last year.
Leave it the way it is right now. There have been very few problems. Leave it the way it is. North Carolina, what they're going through with all of the business that's leaving and all of the strife, and that's on both sides. You leave it the way it is. There have been very few complaints the way it is. People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate. There has been so little trouble, and the problem with what happened in North Carolina is the strife.
Pretty clear, right? Well, the White House's new approach to transgender bathrooms is spurring on yet more protests against the administration. Overnight, protesters taking their battle cry for transgender rights directly to the White House.
Shame on Trump! Protect the trans students!
Accusing the Trump administration of delivering a major blow.
Trans equality now!
In a late-night decision, the White House reversed guidelines issued under President Obama. Public schools no longer required to allow transgender students to use the bathroom of their choice.
The president's made it clear throughout the campaign that he's a firm believer in states' rights and that certain issues like this are not best dealt with at the federal level.
Top Democrats calling the reversal just plain wrong and saying civil rights are not confusing. Jackie Avancho, who sang at President Trump's inauguration and whose sister is transgender, tweeting, "You gave me the honor to sing at your inauguration. Please give me and my sis the honor to meet with you to talk transgender rights." The issue even pitting two key members of the president's cabinet against one another. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos saying, quote, "We have a responsibility to protect every student in America. This is not merely a federal mandate, but a moral obligation," end quote. While Attorney General Jeff Sessions says the Department of Justice has a duty to enforce the law, adding it remains committed to its protections for all students, including LGBTQ students. Stuck in the middle, students like Gavin Grimm, born female. His Virginia school district banned him from using the boys' bathroom. His case now headed to the Supreme Court.
We will not be beaten down by this administration or any.
No, we won't.
The Human Rights Campaign says the transgender community is a target of disproportionate amount of hate crimes. Transgender people also have much higher suicide rates. Some studies show they try to kill themselves at 10 times the rate of the rest of the general population. Now, this student explains the human face behind those alarming numbers.
I started getting bullied in 9th grade. It started with just like words and like people saying things in the hallway, and then it would escalate just throughout the entirety of 9th grade. People not wanting to sit next to me in class, not wanting to change in front of me in gym, getting pushed into lockers, and then towards the end of my 9th grade year, I decided that I had had enough and I was done and didn't want to live anymore.
Now, the question for the panel, why would the administration take on this fight right now with everything that's going on? Let's bring in our panel. Richard Brodsky, he's a former Democratic New York State Assemblyman, now a senior fellow at Demos and a professor at NYU. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Bill O'Reilly, former Republican strategist, now a member of the Conservative Party. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Bill, I start with you, and that is, I'm not trying to even litigate the morality or the ethics of this. We try to put a human face on that, in that if there's a population out there that doesn't have it easy already, you'd put the youth population into that. But why now, with everything going on? Republicans on the Hill clamoring for tax reform, repealing Obamacare and replacing it with something else, and all the other initiatives that are going on, let alone of the president's own making, immigration, we could go through everything. Why pick this fight now, especially when it ran so counter to what he said when he was running?
It's good politics.
Is it, though?
It's good politics. I think.
Is the timing of CPAC coincidental, or is it time for it?
No, I think CPAC is coincidental. I think it's a good way to get the topic changed from some of the immigration problems from that first executive order.
Yeah.
It's a good way to roll into the state of the union. It's, you know, a lot of Americans have a problem with this. I mean, less with bathrooms than with, say, shower rooms. There are people who feel that way and are afraid to speak up. When Trump is playing the heavy here, there are a lot of Americans that agree with him on this thing, but they don't want to say it. It's good politics.
To me, Andrew, listen, I think we make mistakes because people go in their corners now more than I can ever remember before. We'll talk about this when we talked about the parties and their directions. Coincidentally, they're both having leadership questions, or at least policy debates as we speak. So left wing goes in one direction, right wing goes in the other. But we just saw new numbers that came out, and we keep saying this all the time, but it bears repeating. The disapproval ratings of this president at this time are higher than they've been before. Has he keeping his base? Absolutely. High 80%, maybe 90% of the base likes what he's doing. I think Bill's right. They're going to like what they heard out of the administration yesterday. But that independent, that dissatisfied electorate that usually voted Democrat, that voted Republican this time, they're not happy with this stuff, and it's not me saying it. The numbers bear it out. I get Bill's point. It's good politics, but it seems that you're starting the culture war fights all over again. That's not what he ran on.
It's not. It is and it isn't. It's not what he explicitly ran on, but we were talking the other day about why it took so long for the Trump administration, or for Trump to put down the rise of anti-Semitism across the country. And I think it's the same explanation. It's because of the people who were in his tent when he campaigned, that he has an obligation to pursue this, because that's the culture war that they want.
I got it, but hasn't he done enough for them in that in the first month, there's been enough red meat thrown into the arena here? Does he need to keep going with this?
If I were advising him, and I'm glad I'm not, I would tell him, get all this stuff out and get it all out early. Play to your base right now. That way you can get it off the table, you can move on to other things, and by the time the midterm elections roll around, and by the time the 2020 election rolls around, all this will be a distant memory. I don't think this policy will still be in place by the time the 2020 campaign starts, so people may have forgotten over the time.
Yeah, but this hurts the Democratic Party. This is, and it depends what perspective you're coming from, but the severe identity politics coming out of the Democrats splits culturally conservative Democrats from the progressive wing of the party.
Do respect, Bill. Civil rights is not.
The Supreme Court will decide whether this is civil rights or not.
This is a civil rights issue. This is not an identity politics issue.
It's not the same thing, but to me,
a lot of other people uncomfortable. And
I hear you, but it feels really a lot, Bill, like 4 or 5 years ago when we were talking about gay marriage. It really feels the same thing. The people weren't ready for it yet. Remember, we talked about civil unions. There is a velocity even to this issue where nobody really, I mean, how many times have we heard big stories that the administration was reacting to a real panic or incidents that were happening in schools? It seemed, Dom, to me, that this was thrown out there as a solution to a problem that people weren't talking about. I'm sure Bill's right. I know Bill's right, that there were some that were uncomfortable with this. But to me, it points again to, and again, it won't change the base for him, but the hypocrisy again. We showed the clip of what he said on the Today Show, never again. There's another clip of what he said, you know, when you had Caitlyn Jenner saying she can use any bathroom that she wants. I'm not threatened by it. Now you do this. It also points to division within his own administration. Another point is, remember how Ivanka and the husband put the kibosh on that executive order? The same folks who like this got on his desk to repeal, gay rights. To me, I didn't get this one. First of all, I think it's mean-spirited.
It is
mean-spirited. But I didn't get it.
It's an easy read, Richard. It's very, very simple. People like you, me, Brodsky, maybe some others, we're never going to be part of his base. So we're never going to understand his logic. It's a simple play, as Bill set up, to his base. End of story. And Andrew is correct. Do it now. Do it early, so midterm elections, hopefully, the broader electorate won't remember.
Maybe I'm thinking too deeply about this, Richard. I agree with what I've heard here, but for that woman who hated Hillary and voted for Trump here because they were sick of it, or somebody in Kentucky or West Virginia who just, you know, they always voted Democrat, they just wanted something different. They know a cousin who's gay. They know this isn't the same thing, but it feels the same thing. You're picking on a population. I just don't get the retail politics.
The retail politics are easy in this. First of all, let's be clear. He doesn't believe this. He said so as much. So it's not.
We think. Right. That wasn't no endorsement. Right.
No,
we don't know.
You kind of do. He said this in an unequivocal way, and he's taken an opposite position. Okay, why? Because he's pleasing an element of his base, Why is he doing that with this stuff? He's doing it because he's about to leave them on the economic issues. He's not going to support savaging the safety net. He's not going to support he's going to support an infrastructure program. He's not going to support a full giveaway in tax stuff. He's the opposite of Andrew Cuomo, who was a pro-reactionary. He's a re-progressive on this stuff. And if you look at this as a gift to people who he's later going to smack, then it makes political sense. And Bill's just wrong about the country, but he's not wrong about elements of the base.
But Bill, my point is, Richard's giving credit that there's a political strategy here. I haven't seen it for the first month of this administration, but you know, that this is kind of a rope-a-dope here. You're going to play yourself that you're right of right here more than anything else, prove your conservative bona fides, and then when it comes to the economic stuff, you know, don't worry where the money comes from.
I
You
think
buy that's that coherent
yeah,
plan?
I think that's a very good theory, and that's very possibly what's going on. There's been some grumbling among his base that he's not getting the layups done, and this could just be some fodder there. But you think, you know, this though is the kind of thing that drives a lot of Americans crazy, where this was, you know, for hundreds of years, forever, you would separate people biologically, and then suddenly a year ago, you're a hater if you support traditional shower rooms.
For hundreds of years,
you know,
gay people weren't allowed to marry.
Yeah, you're saying that people shouldn't feel uncomfortable if biologically different opposite people are in with their kids.
Period,
it makes people uncomfortable.
Feeling uncomfortable is understandable.
Right.
But the people are uncomfortable with a black and white couple.
But it's not been a huge issue. What they're saying is move it to the states first of all. Localities deal with this stuff they have for years.
You know, no, I'll say this.
Racial
I'll
issues
give you
were
just
viewed the same way.
Just for me, the only thing I'd say to that, Bill, is without even going to the racial history in this country, this exact conversation happened even more recently than gay marriage when it had to do with integrating gays in the military. Remember, there was a huge run-up to say, oh my God, it'll create disunity in the ranks here, we won't be able. It happened. What happened? Now, my only point is sometimes people do political statements to try to address or remedy a situation or deal with a controversy. I'm telling you, from educators and everything else, maybe we're in the Northeast. I haven't heard anybody complain about this. They complained about the cost of building another bathroom, maybe, if they didn't want to let them pick the bathroom of their choice.
But the people pushing it don't want another bathroom. They don't want accommodation.
Don't speak for that community.
Well, I read their op-eds.
Some do and some don't. Yeah. Don't tar them across the board. The fact of the matter is that social attitudes are changing, and you're backing.
But you're saying people are wrong for feeling what they consider to be common sense.
Didn't say that.
We're going to keep this debate going in the break here. When we come back, though, I mentioned off the top we're going to be talking about both parties, and it's not just theoretically. Right now, they're having different conversations about where, as parties, they want to go. We're going to start with the Republicans. State of the GOP. Steve Bannon making a rare appearance on the mic, and Reince Priebus. They spoke at the conservative CPAC convention today. Do they represent the party, or are guys like the Milo Yiannopoulos and the Alex Jones the new face of the movement? We'll be right back.